Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. This video, this video is about guns. I found some quotes from general authorities having to do with guns and preparedness, and I feel it necessary to find every picture on my Facebook account of me with guns so you can understand that I am not against guns. I don't think the church is either, but there are a few quotes that I think we would do well to pay attention to and adopt the same attitude ourselves. So this is me clearly in the Army. This was after boot camp, and I was in AIT, which is where you learn your job in the military. And there's this part where I had to go to this armorer school. And later on, of course, I became my unit armorer, which was very fun, I assure you. But I was in supply. And so that just happens sometimes that you get extra duty and take on a second job. So me with a really large sniper rifle, which I never got to shot, but I got to pretend like I, shot it. So that was fun at least. Here's my two girls when we were living at Fort Hood, wearing their cute little Army PT shirts and camo pajama pants, pretending like they had guns. And then here's me at the range shooting a gun, probably a M16. And then here's me at another range where a tree caught on fire because that does happen. You're shooting all these weapons and you have dry grass or whatever. You have a stray around and fires happen. So this was like the first time I think I went to the range after I got to my unit. Here's me doing an IED training and getting out of the Humvee and pretending to stop this Arab man with a suspicious oil with this suspicious oil drum. And luckily I was able to fend him off, but then later as the convoy kept going, he threw the oil drum at us. So I think I failed at that part, but no one ever told me that. I just kind of assumed that. Here's me deploying to Afghanistan, me and Jenica. And I was probably one of the last people to deploy with an M16 because we were not like a combat arms unit. I was in an HHC, which is headquarters company. So it was like a support unit. So it wasn't really high priority for us to have all of us have M4s at that time, even though we did have a few. But no, I got the M16, which is great. Here's after the deployment and me being forced to pretend like I had a rifle while we conducted this silly training exercise. And then here's me at the end of my Army career being sick of guns, having to watch all these rifles while somebody went and got the Humvee so we could take it to wherever the crap these were going. Here's me after the Army, after having put on like probably about 50 pounds. And I bought myself an AR-15, which later, a few years later, we just sold back to Cabela's because we needed Christmas money. Don't freak out. Stop. Before you start typing, stop. They do not make baby AR-15s. This is a lighter. My mom bought this for me at the PX at Fort Hood. It's just a really cool lighter, and it just happens to be the perfect size for infants. This is my infant son after he was born, and I just put two and two together. I was like, this is going to be an awesome picture, and it was. I'm sure he's going to appreciate it once he's older. And then going back to before the Army on my mission, I took a picture next to this cannon. So, okay, so I'm not against guns, understand? But I've decided to create a new row on my spreadsheet called quotes A through Z for guns, because I was preparing for another video and I came across a really interesting quote about guns. I'm trying to collect everything, you guys. I'm trying to, find quotes and scriptures for all the topics. So it was going to happen at some point. So now we have guns. Okay. So the first quote comes from this talk by President David O. McKay. This is the April 1963 General Conference. The name of the talk is Radiation of the Gospel. Okay, he mentions guns here, but this is actually a quote that I'm putting both under guns and also Salt Lake City, which I was surprised I didn't already have a quote about Salt Lake City, but there's always a first time for everything. Okay. He says, I am reminded of a remark made by a man who came here, meaning Salt Lake City, excuse me, and attended the board meeting of the United States Steel Company in 1946. You'll remember, some of you in this audience, some of you general authorities will remember that they invited us to attend a dinner of that board. And at the conclusion of that entertainment, the chairman, the master of ceremonies, I think it was Mr. Irving S. Olds, said, quote, now, we are not going to have any set speeches, but here's an opportunity if any of you would like to express yourselves. Mr. Nathan L. Miller, I wonder if he's related to Larry H. Miller. If you guys know, let me know in the comments below. General counsel for that board arose and in substance said, quote, I am one of those inquisitive... Oh, no, he's from New England. Dodoy. I knew that. Okay, he said, I am one of those inquisitive, suspicious New Englanders, and I have been impressed with something in this city that seems to be different from any other city I've ever visited. Well, now, let me just say, this was back like in the 60s, possibly the 50s. Definitely not the same today, I'm sure. A radiation, he continued. I walk up and down Main Street and watch the people. There's something about the city which is different from any other I've been in. I tried to define it and wondered what it was, but during an interview in the president's office today, President George Albert Smith was their host then, and the board had invited him that morning. I think I discovered what it was, or what it is. President George Albert Smith had called on some of the brethren to speak to the visitors, United States Steel board members who were sitting and attending and standing around the First Presidency's board room in the church administration building. He said, I listened to what these men said. One of them had referred to the pioneers and the spirit of the pioneers that before had started out across the plains under the direction of President Young. They sought divine guidance first. Second, now here's the part about guns. Second, under his direction, they were prepared. Every man would carry a gun. It must be prepared for an attack of savages or any other possible emergency that might come to the pioneers that day. Maybe like a bear or something like that. Maybe a cougar. So let me just first say, I want to collect this quote because, you know, we have the philosophies of men in the world, and some of them are, you know, getting really loud and against things like guns. And this just goes to show that there is a proper time and a proper place to have guns, even privately. You know, some people get really strict the way that they feel about firearms. And I would just say that there is a time and there is a place even for private ownership. I know that this was pioneer days. I know that it was a different time, but we still need that right? It's the Second Amendment. We need that right. And this is just one example of when it's proper to have a gun. All right, continuing. And third, every man must take as much care of his neighbor's cattle as he did his own. Worship, preparation, service. I do not know whether it was that answered this gentleman's curiosity or not, but he said, quote, I thought in that meeting in the president's office, I detected what there is in this city, or in the city, which is different. It is spirituality, said he. That's it. It is spirituality. The pioneers had it. I'm wondering if you younger men, he spoke to those around him, can keep that spirituality with the installation of material things coming into your midst. End quote. He was referring to that radiation of the group, which we all feel. I repeat, every individual has it. Every home radiates it. And every Latter-day Saint home should have it. So that's really neat. I feel like I've heard other quotes about Salt Lake City Like there's one where it went something like the person was saying that Salt Lake City was the most orderly metropolis that he had ever been to, or metropolitan area. If you have that quote, please send it to me. I'd love to add it to my spreadsheets. But anyway, Salt Lake City, he felt a difference going there. I don't know if he would still feel that same way if he went there today, because it's a much different place. To me, Salt Lake City in my mind will always be the Salt Lake City from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I hardly recognize it anymore. But anyway, that's just a really interesting thing. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So yeah, it's like I said, I put this on both guns, what's currently row 210, and then row 463 for Salt Lake City. Okay. Now, we got this one from, at the time, Elder Ezra Taft Benson of the Council of the 12 Apostles, April 1968 General Conference. Americans are destroying America. And I feel like this is still the case today. This is the one where I was working on another video and I happened to come across this quote. It's under a section called Gradual Encroachments. The facts are clear. Our problem centers in Washington, D.C. Our problem centers in Washington, D.C. And this applies to the administration of both political parties. In the words of James Madison, quote, "Since the general civilization of mankind, I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden assertions." End quote. Yeah, that is really good. I think some people think it's kind of like the frog in the boiling water. If you're not familiar with that like analogy, you take a frog, you put him in, like if you try and put him right away in hot water, he'll just jump out. But if you start it at like an acceptable temperature that the frog is comfortable in, and then you slowly turn up the heat, it's not able to detect the change very well. It just like gets used to the temperature. And as you slowly turn the temperature up, it doesn't even realize that it's in danger, and then it dies, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Well, it is the same thing. Gradual encroachments until you don't even have a country that's recognizable to what it was, X number of years ago. Okay, continuing. If America is to withstand these influences and trends, there must be a renewal of the spirit of our forefathers, an appreciation of the American way of life, a strengthening of muscle and sinew, and the character of the nation. America needs guts as well as guns. National character is the core of national defense. Now, I don't think he's talking about guns necessarily in like a military sense. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It seems like he's talking about just the everyday citizen, in that we need to have that. We do need to have guns. But then he does say national character is the core of national defense. But that makes sense because you have like the micro scale and the macro scale. Anyway, so I'm taking that, I'm adding it to the spreadsheet. I think he's talking about it's good to have private ownership of firearms. Okay, and then this is the last one, and we'll probably revisit these topics again in the future. This one has to do with both guns and preparedness. This talk is called The Power of Elijah, the April 1974 General Conference. This is Elder Theodore M. Burton, assistant to the Council of the 12. Okay. Now, this one is really interesting. This is the one that made me want to find all these pictures here to show you that I am not against guns by any means, but we do have to be tempered in the way that we deal with things. Okay. And I feel like I know people that maybe need to work on this, and maybe too much have this type of mentality, what I'm about to read. Some members of the church have said to me, why should we keep a store of food on hand? If a real emergency came in this lawless world, a neighbor would simply come with his gun and take it from us. What would you, excuse me, what would you do if a person came and demanded your food? I replied that I would share whatever I had with him, and he wouldn't have to use a gun to obtain that assistance either. Let's stop right there. Is that what your response would be? I would like to say that that would be my response. Obviously, that would be a very difficult situation if you're worried about, surviving. You don't know when there's going to be food in the store again. That might be hard. But even in difficult situations, we're still supposed to be disciples of Christ and think, how would he handle things? Instead of how would the natural man handle things? And look what comes next. I think this is the natural man response. I wouldn't, replied one man. I have a gun, and I wouldn't hesitate to use it to defend my family. Anyone would have to kill me first in order to get food away from me. After all, they bring their own misery on themselves by not being prepared. You guys, this right here, this is the wrong answer. It's not wrong to defend your family if they're in immediate danger, but we're talking about sharing supplies, sharing food in difficult circumstances. Are we going to be like, oh, sorry, you should have been prepared. I put in all this work, I spent all this money, gathering all this food and supplies. And now here you are, you're foolish. I was the ant, you were the grasshopper. I'm prepared, you're not. And guess what? I have a gun and I'm going to protect what I've prepared for. All this stuff that I prepared. All right, continuing. Well, one way to solve this problem is to convert your neighbors to become obedient Latter-day Saints with their own supply of food. Okay, so we're talking about a proactive approach before we get to this point. Not that this is going to work. Obviously, we can't force people into the church, but maybe right now we should try and be proactive before we get to a point like that. All right, continuing. If every family were provided for, our stores would be safe for the use of our families, but not all people have sufficient faith to share with others, as did the widow, the widow who shared with Elijah. I remember the words of another prophet who loved the poor and the unfortunate. He said, and also ye yourselves will succor those that stand in need of your succor. Ye will administer of your substance unto him that standeth in need, and ye will not suffer that the beggar putteth up his petition to you in vain, and turn him out to perish. Perhaps thou shalt say, the man has brought it upon himself, his misery. Therefore I will stay my hand, it will not give unto him my food, nor impart unto him of my substance, that he may not suffer, for his punishments are just. So another way of saying that is, well, you deserve this, so you should have been prepared. And you're not, and I have a gun, and I am prepared. You guys, that's the natural man way. And yes, good job preparing. But we need to be the way that Christ has taught us to be, and be like this widow who had nothing. Okay. But I say unto you, O man, whosoever doeth this, the same hath great cause to repent. And except he repenteth of that which he hath done, he perisheth forever. Yikes. And hath no interest in the kingdom of God. For behold, are we not all beggars? Do we not all depend upon the same being, even God, for all the substance which we have, for both food and raiment, and for gold, and for silver, and for all the riches which we have of every kind? That's from Mosiah chapter 4, verses 16 to 19. I sincerely believe if we do everything in our power to be obedient to the will of God, we and our families will never lack. And you know what? I think that's true. Why? Because that's been my experience in life. I did not, even though I had lots of fun, I did not want to join the army, you guys. I did not want to do it. I had a different plan, but our priority was for Jenica to be able to stay home, be a homemaker, and we have been blessed. We have not lacked. I have had to do a lot of crappy things that could have cost me my life, by the way, but we have not lacked, and she has not had to work. And we've had enough. We've been able to do fun things and buy fun things and have good Christmases, even if I had to sell my AR-15. But it's okay. And I'm very happy with how my life has been. And I'm not rich. Things are generally getting better over time, but it's fine. We've had a happy life together as a family. Our needs have been taken care of. So that's why I believe that. So I'll do more gun videos. I also have other videos. Like what I was preparing for was another money and personal finance video, because I was making some of those videos and I have more to make. So that'll be out soon. But that's it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.